Hi all, how you doing? Hope you're doing great wherever you are in the world. Okay, I've just done the timestamps for the Binance Live AMA, 31st of October. Simul stream that Reid Davis has done on Binance Live and his own Blockdag investors. So while he was doing this, he basically had people in the chat from his own channel that he was looking at, I think, and sort of using the chat to potentially ask questions and that kind of thing, and get feedback on how the AMA was going, and get feedback on the answers that Anthony Turner was giving. Anyway, let's get straight on with it. Big announcement from Anthony Turner, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to play that in its entirety and probably not stop it. So here we go. I think I'm at the right point anyway.
You, Antony, please go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much. And thanks, Nick, for your introduction. As you say, lots of exciting things happening, lots of things on the go. So we're thrilled to be here again. This time round, we hope we don't keep you for 2 hours. So we've been told to make sure we've got an hour, so we'll use it wisely. But yeah, great to have you here, and thanks for your time again. So I certainly believe that we've got an amazing project. I mean, we're building something truly special here. We've got a DAG that revolutionizes the way that transactions happen in a blockchain. And yeah, we want to show that to the world. But like a lot of projects, whether it's in crypto or IT or whatever else, there are always challenges. And we've had our fair share of challenges. We know we've had probably more than our fair share of challenges. We've had a couple of missteps that we've had along the way. And last week, we obviously had some challenging questions. We had some good dialogue with the community. We were called out on some things. And yeah, we had a chance to obviously present the no bonus era, which I think is fantastic. We've moved away from bonuses, as Nick said. I think, and I'm just taking a chance to sort of reflect. So I need to start by apologizing for various times in the past where I've come across as undecided or uncommitted or vague in terms of answers. And that revolves around some of the missteps, the tap miner, the recent excess bonus points that we've gone through, those sorts of things where the community's called me out and said you haven't had a good answer for those issues, and I've been quite vague around it, talking specifically using wording like I wasn't aware and I should have been aware, or next time I'll be more focused on it. And I think that I'm apologizing for that, but it was done to a certain degree out of necessity. It wasn't that I didn't want to be open and transparent, but what I can do now is be more transparent around it. So I'd like to first of all just clarify what my role is in Blockdag and what it has been, and that'll obviously give you some understanding of why I was fairly vague in terms of those answers. So my role has been to focus on the development, building the blockchain, building infrastructure, bringing in exchanges, working with them. So everything that revolves around building and launching a blockchain, including building the community around it. That's been the focus. It hasn't been marketing. It hasn't been the pre-sale. It hasn't been anything around the financial side of the business, financial management, treasury, anything like that. So that's been outside of my focus and outside of my area of responsibility. Obviously, everyone's called me on it because a CEO is expected to be responsible for everything, and that's always put me in a bit of a difficult spot. And that's and I can just apologize for that, but I'm just being very clear where I've been responsible. This is not me trying to shirk responsibility. It's just giving you clarity around the answers that I've given. So that brings me to a pretty big point that I need to bring up for discussion, and that's why I needed to lead in with my roles and responsibilities up to here, is it has been agreed within the project, in principle, that from here on, with a bit of a transition period, that I will be taking over all responsibilities that you would expect of a CEO. So all responsibilities for marketing, for finance, for delivering the product, for support, for treasury, for financial controls, for everything. So everything will be transitioned and handed over. All IP and development work will be handed over, all funds raised and all marketing. So that will, through a transition period, it will fall under the CEO. I'm the CEO at the moment. If the community has better ideas, then I'm sure we'll hear about it. But right now, I hope that everyone is happy to trust me with that. I think I've demonstrated that within my ability, I've always been honest. I've always tried to do the absolute most that I could within the sort of constraints of my role and my constraints of my abilities. In terms of how that'll work, so just to give you a bit more sort of structure around it, the plan is to create a new structure. It's important to move away from the past, so creating a new structure. It will be owned by the community. Obviously, we've come from a space where there's a lack of trust for very good reasons. We need to move away from that, so we're going to be setting up a new structure. It'll be owned by the community. Most likely, the ownership will be through a DAO. Now, before everyone gets worried about DAOs that have not necessarily worked, we're looking at using a DAO for the ownership and the voting as shareholders, not as a management platform for the project, because that hasn't necessarily worked well. So giving the community some sort of DAO type ownership in the project, creating an operating company, which is probably going to be in Panama, a foundation, which won't be initially in Switzerland because we can't have one in Switzerland until we've launched. So there'll be an interim foundation, and then the plan is, when we can, to move that to Switzerland once we're compliant. All the funds from the pre-sale will be obviously part of that. They'll be held transparently within the structure in one or multi-sig wallets, MPC wallets, etc., for the community to have visibility over. So just to recap, going through all again, we're moving away from the current structure. We're moving away from restricted responsibilities for the CEO in the new era. I will have, or the CEO will have, full responsibility over everything as you would have in a normal company. We will transfer everything across, which includes the IP, all the development that's been done, all the infrastructure that's been built, all the funds raised that remain after all the expenses. Now, I know there's lots of questions around how much is that. I'm talking, at this stage, we're going through sort of high level and principle. So everything that remains after the expenses that have been paid will be transferred across. Part of the responsibility will obviously be to take over the marketing as well into this new structure through some sort of DAO ownership with a foundation, eventually in Switzerland, and some sort of operating company, probably in Panama. Full visibility over the funds in that structure, and obviously openness to work with the community through the DAO, through whatever other structures, and obviously embracing the relationships we've created here, and taking that forward as part of that. I think that covers it. It's been a lot of stuff that we've been working on this week. No one here is actually aware that we were getting this far this quickly, I think. So I'm hoping, certainly Mohammed and Reid, you're happy with this announcement.
It's news to me.
Pretty much,
yeah.
It's news to everyone. It's come together very quickly, and I appreciate the willingness for everyone in the current structure to embrace this and to allow it to happen. So we need to be appreciative of that. I don't have all the details. We're busy working on a bunch of stuff here, so I'm not going to try and sort of give you more details. As it unpacks and as we create more certainty around the plan, we'll get that information out. There is going to be a transition period. It's going to be tricky because we don't want to. We have business as usual. The transition is going to be obviously more impactful around marketing because there's a bigger change in management there. From a dev perspective and all the rest, it's mostly business as usual. So that'll just sort of carry on. But from the comms and marketing, that will change. I'm going to obviously hand over to you guys, and there's probably a bunch of questions. Just to mention, we want to move with this quickly. Some of the stuff, even the structurings, probably takes 4 weeks to get the structures in place, then to do final transitions and stuff. So it's likely going to take us to the practical end of the year. We are going to move quickly on what we can. So from my perspective, the sort of low-hanging fruits that we can tackle quickly that don't get stuck in all the nuances of the structure and things are support, getting that wrapped up, improving, sorting out the compromised wallets, starting to move on the community management to start embracing the community. We shouldn't have groups like that are forming outside of the community. We know why it's happened, and it's a natural progression of what's happened, but we need to embrace people. So that side of things, part of the structuring is also addressing MiCA and other compliance as well. And I think that covers most of what I wanted to say. I know there's a bunch of questions. I've got less answers on some of those because the focus has been on this, which I think has been probably far more material to everyone as opposed to tackling sort of individual
Okay, so I'll stop that there. Let me just
questions around things.
Oh, he's off again. Stopped it, right. So that's Anthony Turner making a bit of a big announcement that nobody was kind of prepared for, saying that he's going to be taking over, right? Which is a bit weird because, you know, he mentions when he introduces himself, you know, he'll say that he's the CEO of Blockdag. All right. So what he's saying in this statement here is that really he wasn't a proper CEO. Okay, he wasn't in control. He wasn't. It wasn't. You know, he wasn't in charge of all the departments. So really, he hasn't been the CEO all this time. So that means someone else has been in charge of you know, things like marketing. And you know, I think this pretty much admitted that Gerhan Kizilos was kind of in charge of the marketing, and that's why the marketing was completely, you know, completely over the top. So somehow they've cut a deal. Although they're saying this is provisionary. Okay, it's not set in stone or anything like that. So that's his statement. And we'll kind of have to see how all of this pans out. Again, with Blockdag, it's nothing is ever transparent. Okay, when you want things to be transparent and clean, you know, it never is. Okay, so we'll kind of have to see how this kind of pans out. But what I would say is, why would you trust this guy? You know, he's lied about things, and if you watch, we'll go over some of the rest of this stuff, and he kind of lies again, in my opinion. Well, why would you have a CEO that has lied in the past? I mean, he's saying that he couldn't talk about it. All right. So to me, that's kind of like lying. You know, it's like, you know, stuff, but you can't talk about it. I mean, if you were like a company director, if you're a CDO of some large multinational company, and you had information, and then you withheld that information from the shareholders, you know, that's not on. And that's what Anthony Turner's been doing all this time. And you'll see through this, well, we'll get onto that. So at this point, Reid Davis, RD, and Mohammed Adam, okay, are sort of happy about this. So let's see what.
Hey, Anthony, mine's going to be a 3-part question. It's basically the same question. It's coming out of the chat. I'm simul streaming, and essentially, are you now planning on hiring a compliance officer as well as a CFO? Is that in the near term?
Definitely a project like this should have both of those roles. Absolutely.
Yeah. So, I mean, this project should have definitely had a CFO with 400 million on board. And clearly it didn't have one because someone else is in charge of the finances who they didn't want you to know who it was. Okay. I think we can pretty much comfortably guess that that was GK.
Okay. And then the main question that's coming out of chat is, if you weren't responsible for the financial aspect and whatnot, who was?
So he asks that now. So RD asks AT, who was in charge of the finances? Let's listen to his answer.
So I can't answer that. I know everyone will continue to have questions. I'm not able to answer.
Now, this is quite interesting. I've noticed that he does this. Whenever he gets in a difficult position, he starts rocking with his chair. Okay, so just pull that back a bit. You just start watching him rocking on his chair whenever he gets asked a difficult question.
If you weren't responsible for the financial aspect and whatnot, who was?
So I can't answer that. I know everyone will continue to have questions. I'm not able to answer that. All I can say is I think this is a solution which allows us to move forward. It's not going to erase the past, but I think we need to move forward. It allows us to move forward stronger. I think any other route forward potentially would have ended up with whether it's regulators or fights or whatever, and that would have been counterproductive. This is the quickest way to move on.
Well, it might be true that this is the quickest way to move on, but it seems underhand to me. That someone could have set out to do what they did and kind of just get away with it. But we'll see, because I think other people might have a different opinion. So large investors might have a different opinion. Well, you know, they could press forward with some legal action and stuff like that. Who knows?
And sometimes the best way to move on is to just look forward. So if I can ask,
you know, they're always trying to sort of bury things, this team. Well, I don't want to talk about this. Let's just move forward. Let's just move on.
The community to work with us, embrace this. I'm not trying to paint over the sort of the issues of the past, but this is the best I can do, and I think we just need to run with it. We need to make the most of this project. We're coming close to pre-sale end and launching, and we need to get out of this phase and into the new era as fast as we can.
Go ahead, Mom.
While we're at it, just wanted to just go into this head on. First off, I just want to start out by saying thank you.
Let's just move
regarding Zach XBT. Just wanted.
So obviously Zach XBT has been talking about this project on Twitter. So Mohammed asked a question here
to see if there's anything that you want to respond to in terms of that, because there's been a lot of controversy.
So I think, from the bits that I've seen out there, I think 2 months ago he put something out which I think picked up a lot less of the community picked up on it, but that was quite misdirected in terms of he was quoting sort of things like copied white papers and things. So I think that was sort of a not very well founded sort of crit on Blockdag. Obviously, this one's a lot more aligned with the general community sentiment. So I think he's mostly echoing what he's seeing out there. I don't see that he's come up with anything sort of groundbreaking.
I kind of agree with Antony's turn here. I think Zach XBT is kind of jumping on the bandwagon a little bit. But I think he definitely does add weight to this, because I doubt very much if this change would have happened if Zach XBT didn't mention it. It feels like that as soon as Zach XBT has kind of mentioned this, it's like massive panic has happened, and now suddenly all this change in the top. Okay, and this GK is kind of wants to get out of the scene before anything bad happens. That's my feelings about it anyway. Whether that's true or not, I can only speculate. Okay, but it just seems it seems a bit of a coincidence that suddenly, there's all this change at the top in the management, or there's talk about it from AT's statement in the first sort of 5 minutes of this AMA.
That is very specific, unless I've missed something. But again, I think same answer to Reid's question as well. I mean, I can't comment more on that.
Okay.
So that's as much as I can say.
Okay.
Well, then I'm just going to say we need to jump into tokenomics. There's a lot to cover there. I know that you had kind of showed us a couple of plans that you had put together and the various levels of fairness. I personally have witnessed you working over the last 2 weeks, and I know that you're trying to look at it from a very macro perspective based on fairness and trying to ensure that that we're covering as many bases as possible. I'm sure there's going to be some outliers, but if you could just break us into that, I think that's going to be a big conversation, and we need to spend a lot of time on.
Yeah, sure. Let me do that.
I think that's why most people are here today, actually, to find out about that. So,
yeah, sure. So I think, I mean, I'll pull my screen up in a moment, but I mean, if I can just ask you guys a question, representing the community, I mean, Reid and Mohammed, in terms of what I've announced now, I mean, does that give you a good sense for a brighter future for the project?
I could say emphatically that the chat, we've got a live chat going here, and it was very happy news. People are confident in your leadership. There's going to be a lot of questions that are still left afterwards. As you said, you couldn't answer some of those, but overall, we would love to see you in control and being able to operate as a CEO is supposed to operate, and having full control over the various aspects. We need somebody that has to take the responsibility upon their shoulders, and I think that you're honest and a smart guy.
So Reid Davis here says that Anthony Turner, AT, is an honest and smart guy. Wow. Honest, really? I mean, so many times he's lied, and even in this, he's not willing to. He's not willing to say who's in charge of the purse strings at the moment in time. I mean, that's the most important thing: the purse strings. Who's got the 400 million? What they've done with it, And he's not willing to say who's in charge. I mean, we can all guess, and I'm sure we're all right. All right, but he's not willing to say. I mean, that's just not telling the truth, is it? That's not full transparency. So when Reid Davis says that Anthony Turner's honest there, I mean, that's a laughable statement. I mean, I've proved numerous times that Anthony Turner's lied. I mean, really, Anthony Turner's kind of saying, well, I lied because I wasn't really the full CEO, so it wasn't my fault. Give me a break kind of thing. But when I'm CEO, you can hold me fully accountable. Well, okay, that may be the truth going forwards. That may happen. It sounds like a lot of the investors are happy with Anthony Turner as the CEO, and they're all turning cartwheels because Anthony Turner is now going to be the full CEO. It boggles my mind. Okay. Why are people so gullible? It seems. I just don't understand people's logic here. This guy's lied. He's definitely lied, and he's made promises and stuff in the past, and then those promises are broken multiple times. I mean, what I would say is, if Anthony Turner's been brought in as a face, as he's basically kind of admitting that, because he's saying he's not really he wasn't the full CEO. He was only in charge of part of the stuff. Okay, and he wasn't in charge of the important bits, which was the marketing and the purse strings, and it was just his part was just to deal with the blockchain and miners and things like that. So, if you're going to take a job as CEO, then you should take it and say, well, am I really in charge of everything? If not, I'm not going to take the job. And that's what you should have said from the get-go. So it just seems crazy to me that all these investors seem to trust. What potentially might be happening is that Reid Davis is getting a skewed opinion of chat, because it could be that a lot of the chat are filled with bots and stuff, or not necessarily bots, but actual people that are on the side of are working for Blockdag behind the scenes, basically. And I know a few people have already said that Mohammed and Reid are working for Blockdag anyway. Okay, so. No, just another thing I want to point out is that before all of this, a few days ago, I emailed Reid with information, but also I asked Reid to make sure that he grilled Antony on who was behind this, and all Reid's done is ask the question, basically who was in charge of the finances. So he's kind of ticked that box, but the thing is, he hasn't really grilled him properly. When you grill someone, if you get a no, you go back again. A good journalist will keep going back, several times, and really grill, really push the boundaries, okay, rather than just asking one question, getting a no, say, oh, okay, because that's what he does here, and that's what he does all the time. What he should be saying is, who's in charge of the finances? You get a no, you get an answer. There's that. His answer was, I can't really answer that question, okay. And so Reid should go back and say, well, why can't you answer that question? It seems like a pretty normal, straightforward business question here is, who is in charge of the finances? We've given you $400 million. How do you know who's got it? Where is it? Who is in charge of it? How much is left? Basic questions, I would have thought these are. I mean, it's all right, Antony Turner now saying, well, hopefully I'll be full CEO and be fully in charge, and we will have a chief financial officer on board, and we'll have multi-sig wallets and all of that. But I would say, why wasn't that done like 2 years ago? Okay. Yeah, it's totally preposterous. And how you can accept, how these investors can accept a CEO to be one that's proven to be a liar. I'm just flabbergasted, honestly, the way these guys just like sort of cave into Antony Turner.
Yeah, no, that's great. And I appreciate that feedback and and the vote of confidence. That's great. I mean, ultimately, we're looking for a bright and also a transparent and legally compliant future. I mean, it's important that, and we certainly.
Yeah, I mean, they're far from that at the moment. Transparent and legally compliant. I mean, you look at all the hassle with the Seychelles and stuff, and obviously they're not transparent on who is running the finances.
You have to embrace that, and the structure that we come up will make sure that attends to all of that. So from a tokenomics perspective, I mean, some of these are just slides from last week, so just a quick recap. This was the slide where we presented, obviously, the oversale of the pre-sale tokens, mostly in terms of the bonuses, 125 billion bonuses that have been sold.
So it just goes over really the solutions, the 4 solutions, and it seems that most people are in favor of solution 4. Which is basically reduce the bonuses down by 75. Antony sort of goes over some of these slides with a bit more detail in sort of saying how that solution 4 would impact people who've bought at early doors and late and in the middle and such, so forth. So I won't cover that. But clearly, some people are going to be better off than others. Now, he does point out later on in this video that Mohammed and Reid will be actually worse off because they were early investors, so they'll be worse off than choosing, say, option 2 or something like that. So,
which we're looking at now because of the new structure is for the DAO, we would have another token. Well, we talked about having another token because in this instance, because we.
So typically with a DAO, you have like a governance token. So it gives like voting rights and that kind of thing, because obviously now all of the investors are going to be sort of in charge of the project and own a bit of the project and will have their say in it. And so they have their say in it by having a governance token, which means they can vote on various things. So a second token will come about.
Bringing it in at this stage, it's better to have a separate token, and that'll be a governance token, and that can also be allocated to compensate for John Sell jumped down my commentary and said you can't say things on act.
So he mentions my name. I found it hard to recognize my name because he said it wrong. He called me John Sell, but you know, I'll let him off because my name's not a common name. But anyway, my name is Stell. It's got a T in it, Stell. Okay, John Stell. So it's quite funny actually, because he says that I jumped down his throat and I said that you know, you need to be accurate and stuff like that. I mean, you don't have to be accurate all the time, but certain things, you know, you do have to be accurate in. Okay. When you're dealing with $400 million of other people's money, I think they would get a bit pissed off when you round things up and you lose like $40 million here or whatever. So it's quite funny though that he was saying he had to be accurate and then he gets my name wrong, so he's inaccurate. So I thought that was quite amusing.
Accurate, so I'll rephrase that and say this is a rough estimation. It depends on when in the month you bought in, and it depends on other factors. So this is a rough estimation of what you would have got if you bought in these months. And obviously you can see very early investors did exceptionally well. And then obviously the late investors did very well with bonus tokens, but their core tokens are pretty low. Sort of timeline.
I think that sounds perfect.
Yeah, I'm okay with that as well. Once it's finalized, do you know what the timeline looks like in order to get those changes?
Yeah, so Anthony Turner basically asked these two if they were happy. The thing that I find a bit odd, obviously, I mean, obviously there's only these two here that can sort of respond, but it seems like these two, Mohammed and Reid, are basically sort of in charge of everybody else, all the investors, whether they're happy or not, or whether they kind of agree to whatever Anthony Turner is going to say, kind of thing. So I'm sure there's going to be a lot of investors thinking, you know, I wouldn't mind my saying this. Okay, why should we rely on Mohammed and Reid to be in charge of our kind of say so? So yeah, that's a bit odd. But I guess there's only those two there at this moment in time. But so Mohammed asked about when the dashboard will be updated, and AT answers about a week after. RD says people are going to be difficult to please. Any other options? Okay, so obviously the bonus, there's going to be some people who aren't happy. Okay, so let's have a look at this bit.
Yeah, good question. I don't necessarily have an answer. I mean, I think I need to give some thought to it.
It's always a good thing to say, oh yeah, good question, gives you another 5 seconds to think of an answer. Oh yeah, that's a very good question. Oh, thank you for thinking quick, think of an answer.
Good. I mean, what we don't want obviously is half the project deciding they want to refund. I mean, that's
right. So straight away he's mentioning refunds. Refunds are off the table, guys. Okay. No, I think refunds should definitely be on the table, on the cards. because at the end of the day, quite clearly they've missold lots of things. I've made videos before about they've missold the miners, how, in the past they've said like the miners could mine 2 coins and things like that. And now they can clearly just mine BDAG, although, when I say clearly, I mean we haven't actually seen these miners really. You haven't seen an X100 miner or an X30. So, and they also mention, we wouldn't mind seeing videos of those kind of things. Yeah. Yeah, so he basically says refunds are off the table. I think the idea is that if one gets a refund, then everybody will want a refund. But I think, if you've been missold, and they clearly have been missold, then, if your terms and conditions have completely changed from when you bought these coins, then really you should be, a refund should be on the cards if people want it. Um, um, Reid Davis says people are backing the project in general, very few saying they want out. RD talks about X1 miners, the tap miners. AT answers about taking a hit by the team. Okay, that was the other thing. So AT is happy to take. So the team is currently getting 1%, and Anthony Turner basically says that the team are happy to take it down to 0.66, I guess, because he said they're happy to take a third off, I think it was. Yeah, the Anthony Turner seems to be suggesting a third off. Okay, he does start off by saying, oh, this is an extremely low percentage for teams. Normally teams ask for like 20%. Okay. What I will say about that is, the figures are much bigger than most projects. Okay. RD talks about percentages, and basically, the percentages are gonna be the same because everyone's getting lowered, kind of thing.
Yeah.
I would agree with that. I think the key thing that we realize, to Reed's point, when I invested in Blockdag, there was nothing to go with. It was just promises. There was nothing behind that, and we took a risk. Everyone I know was actually advising me against it.
Still feels like there's just promises behind this project to me. I mean, now they're changing it all again. It's going to take weeks to reorganize the structure of the people behind it. It's a good way of delaying things again.
And I took a risk in it. And, at one point I did question myself if I made the right decision. And so today, actually sitting at this table, you're giving me purpose to believe again. And there's a lot of investors that are feeling that way right now.
I don't get it. I don't get these investors how they're so happy all of a sudden from this. I mean, yeah, I don't know. I guess other people's mentality is definitely different from mine. I suppose if you have invested, then you just want some changes, and hopefully those changes will make a positive impact. I think a lot of this, I think people have been looking at this project and thinking that their investment is just going to go down the Swanee, basically. And here with these changes, they feel that it's better, even though it's not good. In my opinion, I don't think it's. I mean, you've got a CEO who's basically lied. I've mentioned this before, so it just sounds crazy to me.
Begin with. So the direction that this is all going to take us is a scarcity piece. And I'm really happy that the team is stepping up and taking accountability for that piece as well. I know you mentioned that you have a large team as well. Is there any insight that you could share in terms of the people that you have working behind the scenes to make this all happen? Because from a day-to-day basis, we're seeing you guys at the forefront, but not sure if you're able to shed any context on the size of the team and just so that the community is better able to understand.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think so. So you've seen the team obviously on the website. We haven't kept adding people, but we do need to do a refresh anyway. I'm trying to think of the numbers. We've got just short of I think we're on about 23 people in what I would call the sort of team that I work closely with. Then we've got a fairly large team in India that does a lot of dev for us. We're slowly bringing dev across into our core team. So we're hiring devs. So that's sort of a transition, bringing them into our time zone and where possible into our office as well. So.
Okay, so I guess you've got to pay all these devs. It's going to be interesting to see how much money's left in the kitty with this 400 million that's been put in. I mean, there should be a lot. In my opinion. I mean, it might be, in fact, in theory, I think it could be a potential for more in theory, but I bet that won't happen. And it'll be interesting to, the audit. Have we got to that? I don't know if we've got to that. Oh, probably not. Hold on a minute. Devs in India. Reid Davis says, person in charge of bonus sales should pony up. Okay. Meaning GK, I think. So Reid was basically saying, the devs shouldn't take a hit on the 1%. So this 1% should affect the team. And Reid is basically saying that I don't think the devs should be impacted by that because they're not in charge of the marketing. They're just in charge of the development. Yeah. Oh, yes. Is it silent?
Appreciate it.
I'm just going to throw a couple of questions out there before I get chewed alive by Reddit.
That's going to happen anyway.
My Blockdag investors Reddit group could be heated. So just want to make sure I'm representing their interests. One of the things that I saw very common, well, two things actually. The first one was, will there be an audit on the finance that was been collected? That's number one. And number two is, can you share some clarification regarding the large investor coming in and whether or not or if that will impact the current smaller allocation that we're looking at for bonuses? So two questions, just throwing them at you.
Okay.
I have one caveat to that. Is that it was put out that with the new investor that it's 2.6 billion at like 3.04 cents or something to that effect. And there's been a lot of people say that why would they buy at 3.04 cents when they can buy at half a penny right now? So, if you would work that into it as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So just before that, I just want to point.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. Why would the investor buy at a higher price?
Point out to everyone, as far as I know, both of you guys are considered early investors. So your promotion of solution or option 4 works against you guys. So I mean, I think everyone just needs to realize that you guys are here for the good of the project. If you were trying to sort of keep yourselves enriched, you would be going for, I think it was probably option 2 that gave you the best bang for your buck. Onto your question, so from an audit perspective, I'm not sure what we're going to be able to achieve.
An audit, so, if you had an independent auditor coming in, I think they would, and they were given like keys to everything and say, you can do what, look into everything, look into every nook and cranny. I think they'd find out what was going on. And now it's Anthony Turner, should I say, is saying, I don't know what an audit would achieve. Well, what it would achieve is it would achieve transparency of what the hell's been going on with the funds up to now. I think a lot of people really like to know that.
And that's probably all I can say for now. I mean, it's part of this transition. It's going to be a restructure. There will be clarity in terms of what we take forward. In terms of how we got there and where the money went. We'll have a breakdown of that. Whether it's a full audit as you'd want, as in fully independent. independent or whether it's just a breakdown, I can't say for now.
So the CEO again, CEO of the future can't say for sure what's going to happen. Yeah, and he's basically suggesting there that there might just be an internal audit. You could just make any old figure up, couldn't you? You could say, oh, well, we have to pay the devs 50 million. You don't know whether those devs are going to get 50 million or whether they get like 2 million. And then somebody, snaffles the other 48 million for themselves or something. I mean, come on, you need to do a proper audit.
And that's, yeah,
Sure.
That's all I can give you on that. In terms of the large investor, we've been trying to ascertain, obviously there's a lot of stuff happening in the market at the moment, well, in the community around the project and all these discussions. So it's less clear whether this large investor is still there.
So now he's saying that the large investor might not even be here anymore.
We hope he is, and if he's listening, we certainly welcome you. But yeah, I mean, it's a lot to invest. We'd love to have him in. In terms of the terms around that, I mean, the video I recorded, I was trying to keep it short, so I didn't go into all the details. But effectively, it's roughly the terms were, I gave you the bonus allocation of 2.6 billion bonuses, but there is also a large allocation of, 2.6 billion tokens or non-bonus coins, and then a further 51 billion bonus tokens or bonus coins. So if he came on, that would obviously come into the mix. Obviously makes quite a dramatic change to all the calculations we've been doing. I think it probably gives us even more reason to look at the mining pool if that guy comes in. We wouldn't necessarily want to say no to a good investor who brings good money. And obviously the money's coming in at a time where...
So he's saying here that he wouldn't say no to a good investor, but, very early on, they sort of made the point that, well, not having an angel investor was kind of good for the project. So now they're sort of saying, oh, we'd like an angel investor. And the other thing they're talking about is the 75 billion mining tokens. Some of that could, and he used the words borrowed, okay? We could borrow some of the mining tokens from that pool, basically, in the tokenomics. So there's 150 billion, 75 of those, 75 billion is for the miners. So obviously, if you bought a miner, right, now you're going to have less coins to mine because this person's coming in and is going to basically steal them all. I mean, using the word borrow is ridiculous. It's not like you're going to pay them back, are you? You're not going to put these tokens back into this $75 billion coin token pool. Coin pool.
On the terms that it'll come straight into a multi-sig wallet, which we as the project have visibility and control over. So I think that's also important.
So the multi-sig, that'd be interesting. Who's actually going to be behind it? Obviously, Antony Turner's going to be one signature. Who are the other two likely? How many are going to be on that? Okay, and who are the people going to be on that?
It's good money that we'll have visible to us sort of from the get-go. So we don't want to say no to it, but equally we need to allocate potentially another 52 billion bonus tokens, and we might have to then borrow from the mining pool. But I suppose we have to first wait to see if he comes in. If he doesn't, well, then that's a problem we don't have.
What about the referral tokens? Because I saw some questions out there. Are those lumped as part of the overall bonuses? The pool that we're...
Okay, a big one.
So I want to sort of speed things up a bit. So RD now asked about the buyer battles, and Antony Turner says, yeah, I didn't really like them either. They're a bit ridiculous, and they didn't really add much to anything really positive. They basically just added more bonus tokens. So that just made this, basically the buyer battles have made things worse. Okay, that's what they basically admits to. Where am I up to now on this? Okay, yeah. So talk about the miners. RD asked about the miners.
Have the miners been paid for? Is the orders in? Are those on schedule from where we talked about last time? Is all that good to go?
So we've paid, I'm just trying to get my facts right. We've paid for half of the X100s. We gave, I think 2 days ago or 3 days ago, 2 days ago, Jeremy gave the final technical sign off on the new miners. So that was required, and now we have to pay the first half of the X30s this week, and that's the only obligation for now. And then we pay the final half, I think, a week before delivery.
You mean this week upcoming?
Yeah, upcoming week. Yeah, so we've got to pay 50% on the X30s this coming week. Okay. So that was only due after technical sign off, which I think was yesterday. Jeremy gave finally.
Okay. I also want to just mention that for the build-a-thon that's taking place, in 1 hour after this AMA, there is a orientation for the people that have signed up for that project, and I want to make sure they get on that live.
Okay, so there's not much more in this. Reid talks about build-a-thon, and then NVD talks about the incredible work. He's obviously starts using his, this is incredible, that's incredible, and he starts using his marketing words. Reid talks about how there's node operators, so people who are investors are also node operators and things like that. And then there's talk about this 7-day window of trading, but that's more to do with individual exchanges like to have some sort of offer, basically, where they do trading for like 7 days or something exclusively on their exchange, I guess. MA then asked about more videos about blogs and stuff like that, about how the miners are going and stuff like that. So they basically want more assurances that there's actually something going on, and rather than them just making it up potentially. They talk about like the power consumption needs for mining and that kind of thing, because people have got to set up. And then closing summaries. MA says that AT will be now accountable if he's now the full CEO, even though he was the CEO before. So I don't really think anything should have changed in theory, but we all know the reasons why that is the case. And then jokes about putting a timer on for when AT fully takes over. I think people are really fed up with timers, so I don't think that would particularly go down well. Yeah, so that's basically AMA. And I think Reid later on talks on his own about some stuff, but I haven't put that in the timeline. So I think Reid goes over some of the chat and some of the questions or something outside of this, because this AMA just only lasts for an hour this time. So that was that AMA. To me, this AMA is like sort of a panic announcement from Anthony Turner, and that this GK is basically trying to get out of this because there's a lot of heat on him, basically. Okay, and he's got enough heat. This guy has got enough heat on him already from all the other projects that he's done that haven't gone well, and various organizations like the Financial Conduct Authority and stuff like that have constantly questioned him about his business dealings. Basically shady, underhand stuff that's been going on. So this is kind of my point about Anthony Turner being like now potentially going forward is going to be like the full CEO, the proper CEO who's actually in charge of everything this time rather than just the miners and that kind of thing. So he's in charge of everything, including the finances and the marketing. This is my point. How if Reid wasn't fully in charge, which he basically admits to, and he doesn't want to admit who was in charge, okay, which seems very underhand and shady in my opinion, because where's the full transparency in that? Okay, there isn't any. So all these investors, and this is why I don't understand at all why you'd be trusting a guy who took a job, um, calling him the CEO when he wasn't going to be the CEO, and he's taken a job potentially off this GK who's got shady history. Okay, so to me that raises question marks about a person who's willing to take a job under somebody that's got shady business practices. And then when Reid mentions, and he's mentioned this several times, you know, how he thinks that Anthony Turner is trustworthy and he's a good guy. I don't think he is. He's not being fully transparent. You know, he could come out with it. He could lay the cards on the table and say what's going on. But clearly, he's still under kind of lock and key from the person who's actually running the show. Anyway, let me know in the comments how you think. Hope you have a great day. I'm really knackered now. It's like 1:30 and I should have been in bed, you know, an hour ago or something. So, but I just thought I'd want to get this out of the way. And I'm just glad it's shorter than the last one. Okay, have a great day and let me know in the comments what you think.